So we've created real public school choice, most apparent at the high school level. We've also created lots of new options. I told you I shut down about 90 schools. We've created 335 new public schools to give people more choices. Almost without exception, those are in high poverty neighborhoods. We've created additional gifted and talented schools as well. Charter schools, which are considered competitive to us, those are public schools that are run by private organizations that we hold rigorously accountable, but is a big part of our portfolio management. They're now in lots of high poverty neighborhoods. We've got 40,000 kids in charter schools and 50,000 on the waiting list. People say to me, why did you bring in competition to compete with your own schools? And my view is it's not about me. It's about parent and student choice, and competition will create a rising tide. We created transfer schools for kids who fell behind in their original schools, young adult borough centers for kids who work and need to go to school and pick up credits between 3 in the afternoon and 10 o'clock at night, learning to work and other career and technical programs. So this is a work in progress, but enormous choice in this system. What's the next phase? This is what we've talked about. It's our innovation zone, using technology and time in different ways. Education is resistant to innovation, but we have got to do a much better job. We could make our teachers much, much more effective if we intelligently use the kind of platforms and data and online work that we're trying to do in New York. We've got basically a zone we've created. We'll focus now on 3 different categories of innovation: time and staffing, new technologies to personalize instruction, and expanding student access to world-class instruction through virtual learning. We're going to have our kids doing lots of different things online, and we're going to have these new platforms, and I'm glad to see people from Time to Know here, because they're going to be part of an online innovative project we're starting in New York next year. It's all going to be independently researched in double-blind studies. We're working with educational labs at Harvard University, so we know what really works and doesn't work before we double and triple down on them. These are the 3 models: 40 schools piloting online, kids doing credit recovery, taking advanced placement courses. These are adaptive learning technologies. We've got Time to Know and 2 other platforms, Compass Learning and Pearson in the U.S., and each of them are doing 10 schools using customized database instruction. In other words, content delivered off of a sophisticated platform so that the teacher can help monitor which kids are getting what and move them at their own pace so that she doesn't get bogged down trying to teach to the middle of a class. And 9 schools looking at very creative scheduling and staffing, where instead of 180 days, they'll have over 200 days, different ways to bring your teachers in, different ways to class size and right size the overall impact. And we're going to figure out how to get greater academic gains through this. This is one of our great creations. I wish I had a lot of time to tell you about it. It's called the School of One, and it is basically moving away from the classroom to the individual student. And what we have for each kid is a learner profile, which way that child learns best, where we're getting the best results. And for each kid, we form a playlist. He doesn't go to a classroom, he goes to a station. Could be an online station, could be small group, could be large lecture, could be games that he's playing. And we assess each day through little mini assessments how much progress he or she makes. And we put this and wrap it up into a very sophisticated learning algorithm. We also have a lesson bank, so we match the kid with various lessons, various content, and we churn that in our algorithm to see what happens. We then, again, look at teachers and see how we align them with the learning profile of the kids, and then we create these daily schedules. So every day teachers have different schedules, students have different schedules. This thing won one of Time Magazine's 100 Best Inventions for 2009, the first time an educational invention won. We're in the early phases of it, but what you're going to see is highly differentiated, individualized, customized learning in a way that says to this individual learner, you can use different modalities that suit you and move at your own pace. Says to the teacher, your job is not to teach to the middle of a 30-kid class. Your job is to customize and tailorize for him. Says to content, your content is good in math, but not good in English or in science. Other content is better. And says to the kid, you have a daily schedule that's uniquely identified for you. So how has this all panned out so far after 8 years? Probably our biggest accomplishment in 2007, after 5 years under the mayor. We won the Broad Prize. That's for the most improved urban school system in the United States. We were a finalist, 1 of 5 in 06 and 05. Once you win, you're no longer eligible. We have our charter schools. About 80, closing in an independent study by a Stanford researcher, closed 86% of the Scarsdale-Harlem achievement gap. That is basically affluent white, poor black students. That's that big thing where I showed you closed 3 points at the outset. This is closing 86 points. And another independent study showed lots of kids who might dropped out. Dysfunctional high schools have come to these new small schools that we've created, those 322 I showed you, and things are up there as well. Looked at a little differently. Think about this. There are two lines, unfortunately, because the city kept its graduation rate going back to the 1990s. The state just started in 2005. So we don't have apples to apples prior for the state. But look at this. In the decade before the mayor took over, flat, 51 to 51. Really, honestly, that should have been about 44 to 44. Since then, steady incline. The state, which is, I think, a more accurate number, in the last 4 years, we've gone up from 46.5 to 59, and if you count August, which they did for the first time, 63. But that's 3 points a year. No city in America has increased its graduation rate 3 points a year. The rest of our state, while we went up 12.5 points, went up about 2.4 points. So give you some sense of the difference in the slope of our trajectory. If we can continue on that road, we can actually transform urban education so that a poor city with lots of minorities, lots of English language learners, could actually match an affluent middle-class state like New York State, and we're well on the way. This gives you some sense of how our schools overall have done based on state rankings. When we started, 9% of our schools were in the top quarter. This is based on math and English scores. We've gone to almost double that. That means that each year, 9% of our elementary and middle schools is somewhere around 90. So that means each year we're doing about 10 schools or so that are moving into the top quadrant. And as a correlative of that, we've gone from being in the bottom quadrant, 62, to 46. But just think about this. When we started, over 60% of our schools performed in the bottom quarter. We've now at least taken that down so that we're down below 50%. But in terms of where we need to go, gives you some estimate of how much work lies ahead of us. This chart is our national tests. The reading scores come out soon, but we got the math scores. Here's New York City. 10 points is about a year. We doubled what the rest of the nation, and we just did 10 times as many as the rest of our state, which is on a similar curriculum. So in 4th grade and 8th grade, we're outperforming our peer groups and on a rising trajectory. And perhaps, in one sense, one of the most meaningful statistics is an independent survey done every couple of years of our parents by an independent high-poverty group called CSS, which is Community Services Society. And they survey poor, near poor, and moderate and higher income families who have children in the schools. And the question they ask them is whether your kid's school deserves a grade of B or A or lower. When we started, 64% said of affluent community or moderate and higher income said their schools, 2/3 said their schools were an A or B, only a quarter of the poor. We've now moved up every rank, but what's most powerful is we're close to parity. We need to move this up, we need to move that up, but for the first time, we're starting to look at parity.